Welcome to another episode of Help Me Buy Property podcast. Today, my co-host is Raj Sharma. He's a really good friend of mine, a client of mine who has been working with us over the last 2.5 years. And so today it's a client journey discussion. It's about who Raj was before IPG, during IPG, and while he's working with IPG. Drum rolls, let's introduce Raj. Raj, hello, how are you today?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks, boss. Thanks for the warm welcome.
And you are in Melbourne today, and so we are in the studio, which is awesome.
Yeah,
How are
exactly.
you finding Melbourne?
Yeah, what a Sydney sider would say about Melbourne, but yeah, apparently whenever I come here, the weather is good. So
You bring the good weather down.
I bring the good weather. So best of luck to you for tomorrow.
Now, thank you for being on the show. And so we are discussing your property portfolio.
Yeah.
Okay? And so talk to us a bit about pre-IPG days. Talk to us about, what was going through your head. I know you were talking to another buyer's agent when I spoke to you for the first time. So share a bit of your story. It is very interesting and very exciting.
Yeah, sure. So I think I started off with like a beginner, not even investor, like someone who was looking for a house in Sydney and seeing the property prices go up. Apparently, I think the push for me to buy my first house was, and this is a different time and era right now, but at that point in time, things were going to touch around 800, 700. And the norm in the market was that if you can't buy right now, you'll never be able to buy a property. And I'm talking about like Sydney, 700, 800, right? So that was a push for me. Apparently that, just buy it. Otherwise, the rate's going to go really high up and whatnot. So bought my first house in 2015. At that point in time, the price was looking around very high to me, which was 660. Now it's around 1.3, 1.4.
Nice.
$1 million has become a norm, actually. And had, cold feet and not the very right investment, I would say, because it's in Quakersville, right? So it's in the surrounding of the suburbs who have been really, grown much more, which were at the same level as Quakersville was at that point in time. So I'm not calling it a mistake because it has grown, but it would have grown, much, much stronger. And then after that, I bought another property in Doreen, which is high cash positive. I don't know, NDAs, if you've heard of. So that's what I bought in 2017, 18. And then after that, apparently, I did not invest at all, right? And people call it good times to invest, right? When I was talking to someone who has invested in 2019, it has actually hit the jackpot and I was doing nothing, apparently. But when COVID happened and after that, there was a tiny bit of growth, which everyone saw, I looked back at my previous 10 years in Australia and thought that my best bet is to work with a buyer's agent because I need to really, look at my property portfolio seriously. And I wanted someone to guide me and help me, apparently.
And so what was your first experience, talking to a buyer's agent? Talk to me a bit about that. I know you did a bit of shopping around before, we connected.
A lot of it, I promise you, was. A lot of it. Loads of it. So I think when I started my research, I would say, looking around, most of the buyer's agencies or buyer's agent whom I found was that, you do one transaction or one property and okay, bye-bye. They didn't look at the whole landscape or the potential for someone to build a property portfolio. And I was not in for that, to be honest, because I thought that, if I have to buy one property, then it's not the right kind of modus operandi, So I did get in touch with someone, apparently after my research, after a lot of talks and, whatnots, but paid him the retainer as well. But it didn't turn out to, again, from the same thought process that, not the landscape, not like multiple kind of property strategy. And I wanted someone proactive, to be honest, like someone who could be as concerned for building a property portfolio as you yourself are. And the issue is that people are just like, I'm not, so there'll be good people as well, but then most of them I found, in my personal opinion, were more concerned about that particular property sale, and which I think Moss, I would like you to talk about it for a minute after I finish. But then for me, the true meaning of a buyer's agent or buyer's agency is that agency or that person whom you're relying on and you're paying them, it's not just one transaction, right? It should be strategized in a way that it's kind of, it builds the foundation to build a very large portfolio.
Definitely.
What are your thoughts on that? And then I'll jump on to how I found you.
Yeah, no, 100%. Look, I think one of the key things that we bring on the table for a lot of our clients is understanding where they are and where they want to be in the next sort of, 5 to 10, 15 to even 20 years down the time frame, right? And so, understanding, the whole property journey and bringing that in a nice, coherent manner. We do financial modeling of the client's profile. And so, that's what really is the gist of, the value we bring on the table. And so, of course, when we first talked about, while you had 2 properties, I was still classifying you as the first time investor. And you'd be like, but I have 2 properties, why are you classifying me as first time investor? I'd be like, yes, you have 2 properties, but number of properties do not dictate where you are in the journey, right? And I'm super proud of the transition that has happened, right? As to where you were 2 years ago, and still remember those words when we first talked, that Moss, I've lost, so much in the opportunity cost. And, I want to be that person, who has 6 or 7 properties, and I'm not, looking back and thinking that, I've lost $300,000-$400,000 of equity that I could have caught.
Yeah.
And so super proud of, what you've achieved over the last sort of 2.5 years while working with us, right? So yeah, let's get into the mix of more, and let's talk about, what happens. Of course, you were working with an old buyer's agent, you jumped across, you wasted a bit of money. I felt really, really bad about, you losing that retainer. And of course, one of the things that, we never do with a lot of our clients is that, we never block retain, right? We always say to people, look, if the relationship doesn't work, you can have your retainer back. That's it, right? Ultimately, it is a relationship game. This is not about transaction. So there's no point me making money off retainers or IPZ making money off retainers, right? If I can't really build that portfolio for you. And so talk to me about, the first property acquisition and where did it go from there?
Yeah, sure. But I will definitely talk about the finding you process first, and it'll take like 30 seconds. And with all fairness to that buyer's agent, he paid me the retainer back, apparently after a lot of pleading and pestering. But again, even if I would have lost the retainer, it would have been nothing in front of what you have created for me, to be honest. Yeah, so again, whoever doesn't know Moss, you don't know him because maybe you're not using Facebook. It's quite popular in regards to the podcast he does, and the value Moss creates in regards to property development, property portfolio building, even if you're not assigned to me. And that's what I completely appreciate and respect, that the intention of whatever videos Moss is doing, it's not the intention to sell, but to guide people like us who stumble upon those videos and can gain some value out of it. So thanks for that, for the community, Moss, to start with. And then, yeah, I stumbled upon a video of Moss, and it was quite intriguing. And then I went to the Facebook group he has, and there were multiple videos I found and articles which were really, interesting. And, I could reflect back on mistakes which I had done. And I got on a call with Moss. I remember we had a Zoom conversation. Sorry for that. I was on a car and we were talking about it. And then apparently I came, I saw him face to face, and we had the conversation. And the thing which won me was the proactiveness which Moss talked through. And that was my, I would say, thing I was looking for, in the sense that it's not about one property. It's all about strategizing together with you to, build a property portfolio, right? And that was theory, but it's practically actually implemented. So when we kicked off, I think the first property we bought was in Adelaide. And I remember my conversation was like, I'm coming from Sydney. I was like, who goes to Adelaide, right? And now I'm seeing that, who all go to Adelaide and how much growth that property has gotten. So that was, the first property was in Adelaide. And I think back to back in like 2 months or so, we bought another property which was out of auction. Very difficult times, by the way, guys. So not current times wherein the properties are going on auction and you can still buy it off. And because of the relationship I think Moss's team has, in fact, that property in Adelaide as well, it was like around at least $40,000 to $50,000 cheaper than the market price, which is like really surprising for me, that how much value a buyer's agency or the right buyer's agent can create for you in regards to not even the projected growth, but also the property you're buying right now can be that high amount cheaper because of the relationships and the strong network Mox's team has.
And Adelaide one, I still remember vaguely. We paid like an extra, I think $1,000.
Oh my God, that was negotiation on steroids, right? It was like, I remember, I mean, again, I mean, it's like the person who will be leading you will be, Moss or Moss's team in regards to even negotiating to death. Like literally, you cannot negotiate. So you are buying it, you're spending you're actually, pulling out your wallet out of your pocket and paying cash. So you should be, really worried about it. But you'll find Moss even more, going to an extra extent to negotiate. And that property is 500K, 1,000. Because I think apparently the real estate agent told Moss that anything about 500K would be okay, right? And bear in mind, I mean, when I did my research in regards to the sold properties in that suburb, they were going around 540, 550, and it was like a no-brainer, right?
Yes, definitely. And it's interesting. Look, I mean, Adelaide has done wonders for people, right? I was investing in Adelaide at the same time in the suburbs that you are investing in. So, a lot of the clients were following a very similar trajectory to yours, right? And so you talk about that particular suburb right now in Adelaide, and you are looking at, properties well above 600, 650, at that sort of price point, right? So it's crazy. And you were sitting on like 1,000 square meter block, massive block.
Yeah, 970 or 98.
Yeah, which is unheard of, right? And so, yeah, and so that was the first property. The second one was Melbourne. We brought you back into Melbourne. Of course, that was positive cash flow. Melbourne is always a bit of a pain. And I understand that, from a cash flow perspective, it always is. But, we balanced it with the first property that was in there in the mix, to counteract the positive and the negative nature of the two properties.
Yeah.
But talk to us a bit about, what the Melbourne property entail. I think, we got an offer from an agent, like literally.
Oh my God. Yeah, I remember that. I just forgot about it. So yeah, I remember that, what happened was even better than Adelaide, like in the sense we talk about this 40, 50,000 thing. In those times, I think back in 2021, my property was not even settled, right? So there were like, I think 10 days remaining for the property to settle. And I got an offer from the agent for 100K more. I was like, oh my God. And again, reliance on Moss. Shall I sell it? He's like, no, just wait.
And it's the same agent, right? I think they were playing real games, right? And so they realized that, they've sold that property significantly cheaper before.
Yes.
They could hit the auction and we realized the value. And so, of course, them making an offer and saying, hey, we can sell this again and we have a buyer at that price point was the crazy market, right?
Yeah.
And so, knowing where to buy, when to buy, what to buy, comes down to the key. Out of all your portfolio, I think the two properties, or the last two properties that we purchased, are my favorites. Of course, each and every property is awesome. But, you ask me, I always have a favorite, when it comes to clients' portfolios. My personal favorite is, the property that we bought, the second property that we bought in Adelaide.
Yeah.
Which was like literally 9 or 10 kilometers from CBD. I think at around the 750 price point.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. It was 750. And again, I mean, the process is that it's not like the properties will be thrown at you and buy this, and because there's a norm in the market, I always hear. So it's not that. It's like the property will be presented to you, the facts, the data pointers, the PDFs, why we are suggesting this property to you, what data is saying, what growth looks like. And then after that, you can, and you can reach out to Moss and his team. There's a, half an hour brainstorming / strategy, which is discussed that why we actually are proposing this particular property to you and why it will benefit you, and and what the data pointers are looking. And I think that property, which is your favorite, I think it's your favorite because we were discussing and Moss said, okay, go and actually find a land over there. It was like around 900 or so. And the best part is that it's a blue chip suburb, and we all know, right? The expectation is that it'll be either neutrally geared or negatively geared. And my God, that property has like two units together, an existing one. So it's cash positive right from the start. And I think 3 minutes to a hospital, 5 minutes to the beach, 7 minutes to the city. So, I think it's and apparently I think and I'll come to that later. But just to give you a taste of it, right? Every single property, and that's the best part about IPG, which is my personal favorite, right? So you can select a good suburb and buy it. But the two top most important points, which I think no one can beat your company, I think, is that and the intellect and the data and whatnot, is that the number one is the negotiation, right? Like and the scooping out of the market opportunities, which are not there on real estate, right? I think that one was not in real estate. The previous Adelaide was not in real estate.
Definitely.
The Perth one, which was not on real estate, right? So how would you find it? How would you compete? I mean, you can educate yourself however much you want to, but you will only go to realestate.com.au to actually find the properties and then negotiate, right? So those properties didn't even come on real estate, right? That's number one. Number two,
I think there was no real estate agent at all, right? In some of these properties,
exactly,
we were talking directly to the vendors, negotiating directly through our door knocker network, right?
Yeah, which is like, again, I mean, I don't know, it's a bit beyond the network you have with the real estate agents, right?
Yes.
So it's just really good. And the second very, very important aspect is that we're always looking towards the future. So every single property in my property portfolio, which Moss has built, has a development potential, right? So I can't even pinpoint on any single property which doesn't have like we're talking about like 1,000 square meter of land in like Adelaide, right? We're talking about this property which has this, I'll not say exit strategy, but cash flow strategy of building. And again, I mean, how can you even think about it, right? So without experience, right? So if it's a 3-minute walk to the hospital, and Moss did all the research. So he does all the research, even picking up the phone and talking to the council, right? And that's what the best part is, that it's not like, we'll build on it and without any substantial facts supporting that. So yeah, I mean, the idea is to build a doctor's room, isn't it? I'm looking forward to that, Moss, which will be like, I think we calculated around 180K, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. That's crazy, because I think what happened was that on the same street that we bought this property at, there was one property which was a residential property converted to a commercial property, and that's what triggered our interest as to, okay, how can a residential property be converted into a commercial property? That's amazing, right? And so when we acquired this property, we did a lot of due diligence, and there was an agent who did that exactly from across the road from there, and they converted their house into rooms for doctors, and doctors pay significant amount of money to be as close to the hospital so that they can set their own private consulting suites. And I think my personal favorite is Val. Of course, you can do developments there, and the resales of brand new product that is selling right now there in Woodville South. I'm not scared to mention some of these names. In Woodville South, it is close to about $1.2-1.3 million for a brand new. And so buying a double unit at 720, which has an opportunity to do 3 units potentially, and having an exit strategy from a cash flow perspective, I think that beats the numbers by miles for any property. I know when we shared this on our Facebook group, people were drooling at it. I was consciously thinking about it, that I want Rajan to say no so that I can acquire this property myself.
I had that gut feeling. I remember. I was thinking, we've talked about a lot about sound, isn't it? I had that feel that let's go with it.
Yes, no, definitely. And I think, I mean, the agent started off at 800, came down, and then, I think you had a conversation with our local agent down there, and he said, look, this is the best deal that you would ever get, right? Because he knew what the market was tracking. He knew how desperate the seller was. And so, we used that to our advantage. So,
yeah, and that's the knowledge, and that's the information, I would say, more than knowledge, that you need to be, and that's where this team which Moss has built comes into picture, that you're being at the right place at the right time, I would say, which wins the game, right? Like, you need a desperate seller for such deals, and which I got like thrice, so it's not a fluke. It happens quite often to the existing clients, which I really appreciate, and I'm really looking forward. And again, in regards to the mindset as well, I'm not ashamed to actually admit it, but I think a lot of people who are buying their first property go through cold feet and whatnot. So I think I remember I was negotiating on a dishwasher on my first property, and this property, I mean, I remember my conversation with the agent. It's like, no, this, that, and I just said, okay, pay $10,000 because we know how far we are. So that's the long-term thinking which I've kind of learned, and
definitely
I'm bothering Moss a lot less now.
Yeah. And so I think the last one was Perth, and that one was an amazing purchase as well. I think, we missed out on two properties, and they were both, smaller land size with a bigger price ticket. And then all of a sudden, you get that third property. And I think we beat the margins our own self, even on the rental side. We committed to saying that this is going to be, say, I think
550 you mentioned, it's on 580 now.
Yeah, it's
right
crazy.
now as we speak. Yeah.
Right.
And again, I mean, whoever comes and says, "Oh, I am in good," whatever. My only point is that go and actually search for the property which bought in Perth. It never came to realestate.com.au, right? And I think just to put things in perspective, the properties at that point in time were around 440 and 430, 440 for like a 500 square meter land and house. And this is like a property which is overlooking like a bush, and then it's near the beach and sought after suburb. And we bought like an extra 10,000 bucks. We got like 100 square meter extra, right?
Yeah.
So,
and I mean, we go back into some of these suburbs, and right now, I was talking to one of our property acquisition specialists, and you can't find anything there at 550. I know we're looking something for your own sister, and she's keen to get in there, and we're like, nah, it has to start with the 5. It can't be under 5. I know Rajan was lucky, and that was the time. But of course, ultimately there is some saturation point when you're coming in and out of it, right?
Yeah.
So that's good. That's awesome. And so where to from here? You tell me, because we've had that discussion offline, but it would be interesting to see and hear as to how does the strategy plays out from here.
Yeah,
from
sure.
your perspective.
Sure. I think one thing Moss mentioned, and he referred to my sister, that actually reflects the trust, I would say, right? Like you get your own family members in and try to actually create the same growth you have achieved. So it's one of that, like my ex-colleagues, my school friends, everyone is there now because they've seen the success, right? So, and I feel proud, and actually if they come into the same ecosystem and achieve the same growth, right? So that's a reflection of the trust, right? Now, in regards to the question which Moss asked about where from here, I think sky's the limit, I would say. I think one more SMSF property definitely, which will bring it to like 8 or 9 properties. I would just look at that, right? I was just calculating that, how many, how much is the number. And then I think, as Moss mentioned, and again, I mean, the pieces of puzzle and, the whole foundation is actually built on an aspect that I reach where I am right now, and which everyone would, right? And that's a whole kind of, I think, few method, Moss, you have, right? Wherein there's a step-by-step process to enable every client achieve the same results as I have achieved. And like what Moss always says, the process works, right? So, and it's the same, right? So for me, it will be a cash positive property. The next one, maybe a 9-bedder. And the very next is getting into development, right? I mean, which was unachievable, I would say. I think in my lifetime, I would have never gotten into development myself. So either we'll be developing our existing properties, and there are so many development projects Moss is on to, like, they're like, I don't know, 10 or 15 every year, which are happening, right? So maybe after this cash positive, we'll get into maybe developing our existing property and then all the development projects, right? So
definitely. And so, I mean, you think about your portfolio where you were, before we thought, in 2020, 21, I think,
yeah,
to where you are right now, you're sitting on decent equity, somewhere around 600 to a million, including your own principal place of residence or overall on the top of it. And of course, I'm not going to take credit for, some of the things that you've done in the past. But the important thing is this, that, there is a lot of people who are out there, and, naturally they become quite nervous, right? Interest rates are rising, market is collapsing. And so one of the things that I really enjoy and that gets me out of the bed is, working with people who understands the mind, who knows how to play the game, who are there basically, playing it, non-conventionally, who are playing this real estate game in a very contemporary manner, right?
Yeah.
So you're not scared of waking up in the morning of, every Tuesday, first week, interest rate, we actually celebrate, right? Because we know this is what the market looks like, right? This is ultimately, where you double dip because you believe in the system, you believe in the fundamentals on some of these, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to. And so, yeah, super proud of who you are, and of course, on the bigger and better things, right? Together, that's the key thing.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. And thanks to you, man. I mean, you're super proud because of you only. You're super proud. Yeah, you can be super proud that I actually took that decision, definitely. But it's like, I would say, not even 99.9%, but 100% heavy lifting is done by Moss's team in regards to, and I know that I can reach out for the smallest thing possible of a block drain
Yes.
to, whatever is kind of, uplifting the rental and, whatnot. So it's like the hand holding throughout the way. It's not like, you'll be left alone, fight the battle.
Yeah.
There are property managers which are recommended. I know you're talking to one of the largest property management agencies as we speak. So, he always tries to get that peace of mind to, and again, I mean, there are things, it's a property, right, which you have. So if there's someone there to, provide you the local contacts to help you solve the issues, what can be better than that, I would say. So yeah, I'm super excited, and my mindset has completely changed. I mean, that's a big thing, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I was the one, like I mentioned, the dishwasher, the rotten timber there and whatnot, doesn't really matter. One very important thing I want to mention is that, like Moss mentioned about the interest rate rises, right? Even in this ecosystem, because of Moss, my mindset is that let's go for another SMSF property, right? Okay, what I'm buying. Oh, I'm not buying anything this year. What are you talking about, right? So, and in fact, the suburbs, right? What Moss mentioned. So we are talking about the interest rate rises and the property prices dipping, but because of the research which is backing up everything, and years of research and experience, that we are buying in Perth, for example, right? Right now. So you need to just understand that we need to invest to get that growth. So I'm super happy and excited, to be honest.
Definitely.
I think next podcast would be about our development projects.
Yes. Yes. No, 100%. 100%. Look, thank you for having you here, and thank you for coming on the podcast and sharing your experience. Stay in touch. Thank you for sharing this with the listeners. If you have any questions from a listener's perspective, feel free to reach out to Raj.
Sure.
If you have any questions, drop it in the comments below if there is anything that you would want to understand or learn from his journey's perspective. And of course, we are here if you have any questions. Lovely to chat, guys. Take care, stay safe, keep smiling, keep investing. This is Moss and Raj checking out.
Thanks.
Adios.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.